First, a little orientation, and that would be on conservation. And you'll note that the first order of business, as is in the text, is water. We're in the business of conserving water. It's become a very precious commodity. In fact, many places in the world just don't have any water. If you're in Southern California, you're going to pay an awful lot of money for irrigation water. Now, it is true up here in the state of Washington, the price of water is virtually free. But it really isn't free, because you still have to get it onto the field in some means, and that's going to cost you some energy. And the second item happens to be energy. And so we're also looking at ways to conserve energy to minimize the expense of moving that water into the field, because most water ends up being in the bottom of a river basin. You know, the rivers unfortunately don't run on top of the mountain, they run down the middle of the valley. So they're at the lowest point in a given gradient as you go down a water system. It has this characteristic of always wanting to flow downhill, and it's always seeking its lowest point of energy, which is always the lowest point in the valley. And also, an awful lot of our water isn't even on the surface, it's underground. It's in underground aquifers, so we're having to drill holes into the ground and lift it out of the holes and pump it up to the surface before it's usable. So it's going to take us energy to pump that water, whether it's from a stream, a lake, a reservoir, or a well. Now, there are some areas in the country that have in the Northwest that have the opportunity to have canal systems that do run on the high parts of the property. If you go up here to the Columbia Basin, you go into the Yakima Valley, other irrigation districts throughout the Northwest, they run the canals on the highest point of ground possible, so that the water is delivered up on the upper part of a given field or property, and then it has gravitational fall to go into the property. Some of the systems have even been piped, and they have trapped the energy in the pipe due to the downhill gradient, because you gain energy as the water goes downhill, and you can actually have pressurized systems due to just the elevation fall within the district that you're working within. And if you go up to the Okanagan, you'll see that. You go to the Yakima Valley, there's a lot of systems that are now pressurized systems. Some of those have been pressurized by a pump station, some of them are gravity fed. So anytime you can use gravity as your ally, you're going to save a lot of energy. Trap that energy, keep it in a closed pipe instead of going down a ditch, and you can trap that energy as it's going downhill. And it's less pumping that you have to put to that water to get it up to the pressure that you're going to use it at. Well, that brings us in the area of energy. A lot of things have happened in the last 15 to 20 years as far as reducing the energy needed to operate the different kinds of sprinkler systems that are available out in the marketplace. We can go to the very lowest energy systems, which would be true drip systems, and they take, at the emission point, you're looking at virtual zero pressure. The ideal is minimal pressure as the water drips out of the end of that emitter. So there's a system that runs at very, very low pressures. We just have to have enough pressure to get it through the filtration system, down the pipeline, through the valving, through the laterals to get it to that emitter so that it can drip out. So it's going to take, it's not like you can run it at 1 or 2 pounds of pressure or near zero pressure. It still takes 20 to 30 psi to be able to drive it through all of that hardware before it finally comes out the end. So we don't ever have the perfect system in the regards of not being able to use any energy at all. Now, it can be a perfect system as the operator is concerned if it's gravity fed at the top end and there's enough gradient hydraulically for all that to take place, and you still get the amount of emission you want out the bottom end of the pipe simply due to elevation drop. Hey, that's the ideal system. And it takes away the need not only for expending the energy to pump the water, but it takes away the need of even owning the pump. The capital cost of a pump has disappeared, as well as the operational cost of the pump. Unfortunately, that is the rare exception. So what we do is we then try to make the best of a bad situation where we're having to pump the water by taking the sprinkler system and trying to minimize the amount of pressure we need to put into the sprinkler to get the coverage that we desire. And so there's been a tremendous amount of research done in the last few years in the trade, and they've gotten to where they have low pressure nozzles and the ability to operate at lower pressures by diffusing the water as it comes out the nozzles. Instead of having great big huge droplets flying out, there's ways to break them up so that we have a little better dissipation and